2017. You are listening to or viewing Counterculture with Aaron Lujan. Today is episode 12, and the title of today's podcast is Comey's Firing Doesn't Hide Trump-Russian Ties, It's Hiding Far Worse. Hashtag Comey firing, hashtag Comey hammy, hashtag Russian ties, and all the stuff that the kids are hashtagging. I initially didn't want to talk about this. I'm kind of weird about, I feel like a bandwagoner when there's a really big political issue. And the reason I say political is I think that's exactly what it is. There isn't a lot of implication to you and I, moms and dads, regular people out in the streets. This is a media elite Washington type of situation. But I chose to cover it anyways because deeper in the cake, past all of the layers, there actually is some serious implications for you and I that are listening. So I wanted to go into Donald Trump. If you haven't been living under a rock, Donald Trump fired FBI Director James Comey last week. And what I wanted to do was go over the reaction from the media and the general populace and what they're painting it as. And then I wanted to explain a counter argument that challenges that narrative that actually makes a lot more sense. And then I'm going to suggest that something far worse is occurring, that Trump is actually hiding far more nefarious than just Russian ties. Very, very disturbing, that does not paint picture in a Trump light. So I'm going to anger liberals and I'm going to anger conservatives and Trump supporters today. So I guess I am not trying to be popular, clearly. So let's just get right into it. I'm going to begin by reading the letter. It's actually very, very short. May 9th, 2017, from the White House, title from the president to the FBI director. Dear Director Comey, I have received the attached letters from the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General of the United States recommending your dismissal as the Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I have accepted their recommendation and you are hereby terminated and removed from office effective immediately. While I greatly appreciate you informing me on 3 separate occasions that I am not under investigation, I nevertheless concur the judgment of the Department of Justice that you are not able to effectively lead the Bureau. It is essential that we find new leadership that restores public trust and confidence in its vital law enforcement mission. I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors, Donald J. Trump. I still laugh and smile. This guy's our president. That's just crazy. I remember The Apprentice. Anyways, immediately, right after, and I'll just jump right into an article from the New York Times. Guess what it's about? Without any form of evidence, President Trump on Tuesday, again, this is the New York Times from May 9th, President Trump on Tuesday fired the director of the FBI, James Comey, abruptly terminating the top official leading a criminal investigation into whether Mr. Trump's advisors colluded with the Russian government to steer the outcome of the 2016 presidential election. So immediately, the toilet paper of record, New York Times, and obviously if the New York Times is saying it, you know that all the alphabet soup networks and all the corporate controlled line Decepticon media are saying the same thing, that immediately this has to be, they're attributing motive. And that is, in my opinion, a lack of journalistic integrity. Because number one, there's been zero evidence of any sort of Russian connection with Trump. And I'm clearly not up here defending Trump because what I'm going to do at the end of the podcast is far more damaging to Trump and probably going to infuriate a lot of his supporters. So please stick with me. I'm not partisan. I'm an independent person seeking truth. I just want to know the truth. I'm not trying to be popular. So continuing, immediately we attributed motive. It's lack of journalistic integrity simply because there's never been any proof of that and of any sort of Russian connection. And we don't know. It's an assumption. It's a speculation that was the motive behind Trump firing Director Comey. Continuing, Spine Susan, hashtag Spine Susan. If we remember a couple weeks ago, the greatest criminal abuse of power occurred where the director of intelligence, or I think she's the National Security Advisor, Susan Rice, under the former President Barack Obama, got caught with her pants around her ankles, smoking gun, red-handed, essentially spying, not essentially, she was spying on Trump, his family, his incoming staff during the election, during the transition period, and even after the election. She was requesting what they call the unmasking, or the revealing of identities, when they were intercepting phone calls, emails, social media communication, any sort of electronic communication. Susan Rice abused her power, clearly politically motivated, to obviously find some sort of smoking gun evidence on Trump. If they had found something, would we have heard about it? Absolutely. Don't you think for a second CNN would be biting at the, chomping at the bit to be able to provide smoking gun evidence to the American people? Look, we caught Trump. He is talking to Putin. They're having, pillow talk last night, and here's the recording. They were recording the president. They were recording everything. Clearly, if there was some sort of connection, all of that illegal spying, and again, it's probably not illegal, but it should be illegal, Fourth Amendment, that there is absolutely no Russian connection. So those who continue to push this Russian narrative are either lack a serious understanding of geopolitics or are just simply being dishonest. And what I believe is that the controlled media knows there's no connection, but that's how they've been instructed to attack, because if you understand the mechanisms of media, it's a weaponized system at the behest of the military-industrial complex. I don't need to convince you of that. It's prima facie, on its face evidence when you consider that they lied to us in the Iraq War, they lied to us about 9/11. I think 9% of the American public don't officially believe the official 9/11 story. I'm not trying to digress. I'm just simply trying to point out the fact that there is no Russian connection, kids, that if you believe it, you just simply don't have a clear understanding of geopolitics, or you are just simply being dishonest. All you need to know is that the president was spied on, the people spied on her got caught, and they couldn't find anything. And of course, if they found something, they would have brought it to the table and probably brought this president down, which clearly the media wants to do. So if you're following my logic here and you're connecting the dots, I think we can all agree that there is no Russian connection. So what I find hilarious about this whole thing is the hypocrisy of the media establishment and the political elite in this country. Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer, anti-gun Chucky, came out on November 2nd, 2016 and spoke of FBI Director Comey and said, I quote, "I do not have confidence in him any longer," end quote. Bernie Sanders, hashtag feel the burn, the Maduro Venezuela worshiper, the guy who admires the guy who's starving his country to death, January 1st, 15th, 2017, quote, "I'm running out of breath. I think he should take a hard look at what he has done, and I think it would not be a bad thing for the American people if he did step down," Sanders said on ABC's This Week. The Obama administration's Attorney General Eric Holder, Oklahoma bombing Eric Holder, is quoted as saying that Comey's actions concerning the Hillary Clinton email investigation, quote, "violated long-standing Justice Department policies and traditions," quote, "broke fundamental principles at the Department of Justice and undercut the public trust in the Department of Justice and the FBI. Lord Hillary Rodham Clinton. Hashtag I'm with her. What's up with all these hashtags this morning? You know why I'm hashtagging this morning? Because I haven't had my black coffee, man. I'm running off of OJ and breakfast. That's my disclaimer this morning. Hillary Clinton said, "I was on the way to winning until a combination of Jim Comey's letter on October 28th and Russian WikiLeaks raised doubts in the minds of people who were inclined to vote for me but got scared off." So, Hillary Clinton is blaming James Comey. So, the Democrats, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, the the usual suspects on the left. Obviously not a fan of James Comey. But wait. Here it is, 2017. What does Chuck Schumer have to say now about James Comey? Quote, earlier this afternoon, President Trump called me and informed me he was firing Director Comey. I told the president, Mr. President, with all due respect, you are making a big mistake, meaning that you should just keep him. You're making a big mistake for firing him. Well, what happened to losing confidence in him, Chuck? Bernie. Donald Trump's decision to fire FBI Director James Comey raises serious questions. I wish I could do a Bernie Sanders impersonation. Raises serious questions about, I'm not even going to try, it's going to be awful, what his administration is hiding. Why did President Trump fire the person leading the investigation into possible collusion between his campaign and the Russian government? And I'm sure the list goes on and on and on. So I just wanted to pause there for a second because the media has no legitimacy. They bounced back and forth. First, Comey was a bad guy, then he was a good guy, then he was a bad guy, then he was a good guy, and I think it literally he was a bad guy twice, and then he was a good guy twice. Whatever was advancing the political goals at that time for the establishment determine whether James Comey was a good guy or bad guy. Do you trust those types of people? Don't you want to just rely on facts and look at things objectively? If you're dating somebody and your boyfriend or your girlfriend tells you that, you know, I wasn't at the club last night, I was hanging out with the homies or I was hanging out with my girls, and you caught her at the club, and then she says the same thing and you keep catching her out and about, and you find out on Instagram that she's at the bar and she keeps coming home and telling you she's at the club, why would you continue to believe her and date her? So then why do we play this stupid game with CNN and Anderson Cooper and Fox News and all these media people? Why do we play this game? Are we stupid? I'm sorry. I just get really frustrated that we believe these paid liars. I mean, so I have to take time in the beginning of this podcast just to remind everybody that these are hypocrites. These are people who are not consistent. And this isn't a partisan thing. Republicans are just as bad. It just so happens that this particular issue with Comey right now happens to shed a lot of hypocritical light on the Democratic elites in Washington. So here we are. Trump fired Comey because he was looking into Russian allegations. Obviously, Trump has something to hide. And just look at the timing. He was about to meet with Russian diplomats, and there was an ongoing investigation that was heating up, that was in the news about him having a connection with Russia. So that's all we're hearing today. And Trump's a bad guy because he's hiding his Russian connections by firing James Comey. What a corrupt person, right? Any of you have leftist friends on Facebook, you know what I'm talking about. It's just what people are saying today. Well, let's consider this. Do you guys have a job? Do you guys have a job title, job requirements? If you don't do your job, do you think that that's grounds for termination? Has anyone ever read their employment agreement? One of the causes of being dismissed, being fired, is when you cannot perform the job function that you were hired to do. And I must say, this is not a defense of Comey either. I don't even have an opinion of this guy. Comey the homie. I don't know the homie. Comey? I don't know Comey. I don't care. What I do care about is facts. And the fact of the matter is that if you don't do your job, you don't get to keep your job. And we had a situation that very few have heard about. There's this woman named Hillary Clinton who was running for president who got caught with classified emails on a private email server on a personal computer or BlackBerry or something, and she was under investigation by the FBI. And during this election, James Comey, the director of the FBI at the time, came out and said that Hillary Clinton did mishandle classified information. He did not deny that what she did was illegal. He said, we're not going to press charges and persecute her because we cannot legally prove intent. So without going back into that issue and going over all the details, there was an admission by the director of the FBI that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton committed a felony and was not going to be prosecuted due to a lack of intent. Well, let me just quickly say, if I'm at the store and oops, a Galaxy S5 just happens to land in my pocket by accident, really, in my example, just follow me here, and I walk out the store and the alarms go off and I get tackled by 7 Samoan guys, and they say, man, you got my stuff, and they grab the phone out of my pocket and be like, I didn't even know it was there. And my defense is, I didn't intend to steal it. It literally, I don't know how it got in my pocket. The security and the police department, when they arrive, are not going to say, oh yeah, you can go on your merry way. You didn't intend to do it. It was the act that was criminal. When you engage in criminal acts, those are prosecutable by the law, not the intent. Okay. However, don't worry, folks. We're getting there now with AI and pre-crime technology, which is for another episode. Moving along, Hillary Clinton clearly got off the hook. The job role of the FBI is to enforce the law enforcement, under the Department of Justice, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, law enforcement, director of the largest federal law enforcement agency in the country, did not enforce the law. He did not do his job. Moreover, he told the Department of Justice, when they asked him questions, who are his boss, because just so you know, we have the DOJ above the FBI. So in the chain of command, the FBI reports to the Department of Justice. They inquired, what's up with this investigation? And James Comey's response was, the case is closed. It's like your boss saying, hey, where are what was that movie? The Office? Office Space. Did you get those reports yet? And you tell your boss, I'm not interested in doing reports. Go fly a kite, bro. You're not going to have a job. So that's what Comey did on an occasion. We are a nation of laws. We're not a nation of men. And the Federal Bureau of Investigation has a lot of officers, a lot of agents, I should say. And their job, and many of them why they signed up, was to be a part of a prestigious agency to catch bad guys, to enforce constitutional law, to enforce order in the country. A lot of the, I would argue, people in the FBI are apple pie, baseball, red, white, and blue, American constitutional loving people that want fairness and justice executed. And many of them I've heard, because I'm not in the know, I'm not part of the FBI, I'm just a regular dude. I've heard that they were very upset by this decision that Comey chose not to. It was a black eye for the agency. Imagine having to go home to Thanksgiving dinner and tell all your family, who all know that you work for the FBI, we're not enforcing the law. We're just kind of, just letting rich and powerful people off the hook. It was a black eye. There was a lot of office politics. If anybody's worked in an office before, we all know that there can be factions and rivalries and divisions, which is why I don't work in offices. I used to. It's awful. And people kind of form little cliques. And apparently there's 2 big cliques in the FBI. There's the pro-Obama globalist wing of the FBI, and there's the pro-Americana, pro-Constitution wing of the FBI. And they've been clashing over the years, and now that there's a new sheriff in town, there's been some push to get a new director. So, what's my point? New York Times, liberals, Occupy Democrats. Could it be possible? Just in a million years, could it be possible that Comey was fired because he didn't do his job? Could it be possible? Could it be possible that he was fired because he didn't do his job? Because he didn't press charges against Hillary Clinton? As political as it can be, his job title was to enforce the law. He admitted to Hillary Clinton breaking the law. He didn't press charges. He didn't enforce it. He told his bosses to go fly kites. He was rubbed the wrong way by his boss. I remember a couple companies ago, I did very well, and I had a new boss that came on board, and he did not like me. I knew the man did not like me. And it came out over some alcohol one night that he got in my face and made it very clear he did not like me. And within a month after that, there were reasons why I may not be having a job very soon, because there were other reasons. There was writing on the wall. There was policy. Again, excuses were being made because my boss didn't want me in my position anymore. He didn't want me a part of the company. I don't think it's far-fetched to also believe that there was some bad blood between Trump and James Comey. Apparently there was a dinner that was recorded, and he pressed him multiple times for his loyalty, and Comey demurred and said that he was going to apply fairness, which I think was a fair answer. Fair enough, Comey. But no, in all seriousness, is there a possibility that the new boss doesn't want him around? It happens all the time. And Comey gave Trump reasons to believe. But no. It's the Ruskies. The Ruskies are doing it. I don't even know what kind of accent that was. Was that the Ruskies are doing it. I have no idea. Perfect Strangers. Remember that show? Anyways, I digress. So I had said the title of this podcast is Comey's Firing Doesn't Hide Trump-Russian Ties, It's Hiding Far Worse. Ooh, clickbait. No, it wasn't really clickbait. It's true. I don't clickbait, guys. What is Trump really hiding? Well, I got some juicy stuff for you. You guys like sex? Yeah, we like sex. Trump is associated with a gentleman named Jeffrey Epstein. Go on to a non-Google search engine. I recommend duckduckgo.com and type in Jeffrey Epstein, Epstein. Just imagine, it's called Lolita's Express. I'm trying to add some humor to this because it's actually really disgusting, and it infuriates me and a lot of other people. But apparently there's a market for beautiful young women, many of them under the age of 18, to provide sexual services to, since this is a family show, to very wealthy, very powerful men. We're talking CEOs, we're talking government officials, we're talking mafiosos, people in the black market, carteles, drug dealers, gangsters, maybe because I'm a thug. But, bad guys with lots of money, with lots of power. And Jeffrey Epstein created a service, let's call it Lolita's Express, where girls, many of them under the age of 18, were victims of human trafficking and were flown around the world as sex slaves and for these powerful men. And Jeffrey Epstein was like the pimp of all pimps. Like, Jeffrey Epstein, you pimpin', big pimpin'. Like, he's more pimpin' than Cat Williams describes pimpin'. And if you don't know pimpin', I'm sorry, guys. If you don't know pimpin', look up just Google Cat Williams pimpin'. That was Jeffrey Epstein, but on like a crazy level. So, what does that have to do with Donald Trump? Well, his name was brought up in cases that were filed against Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was brought to court. He was pressed with multiple charges of prostitution and child human trafficking and sex exploitation and all these crimes that are on the books. And Donald Trump's name was on a number of those cases. He was actually arguably a co-conspirator in one of the major cases that was brought before a federal court and under investigation by, guess who? The FBI. So the FBI was investigating Jeffrey Epstein, who is an associate of Donald J. Trump, and the case went to court, and he was, guess what? Guess what happened to Jeffrey Epstein? Guess what kind of justice was exercised in America? Well, it was dismissed. One little tiny charge, one count of prostitution. He was allowed to settle all the other cases in civil court. He didn't have to go to jail. And one of the deals that the judge cut, which I'll get to in a second because that's an important person to know, The judge on this case said that we would not charge potential co-conspirators, meaning anybody that was on the the Lolita Express was not going to get yanked off the train. They were not going to have any charges pressed against them. It was going to be all good for those people. So if you're following me, Donald Trump would never get in trouble as a result of the ruling of this case. Well, who was this judge? Judge Alexander Acosta. Judge Alexander Acosta. He was the judge on the case, and it just so happens that Judge Alexander Acosta is Trump's nominee for labor secretary. Oh, isn't it get juicy? Guys, this is why I wanted to do it. We're talking about Russia. There's zero evidence. Lolita Express, if you guys really dislike Trump, get him over here. You guys got evidence. I'm not even defending him. I'm saying, hey, left, you guys want to take down the prez? Boo! But you know what? You guys aren't going to do it, are you? You're not going to do it. You know why? Because you're controlled. Because you do what you're told. Because you don't think independently. And I'm begging you. I'm encouraging you. Left, we need you. We need you on the left. I mean, we need you on the fight against these wars. I want to hold hands with you guys on the front lines of all of these wars that are destroying people and potentially destroy this planet. And you guys want to sit there while Anderson Cooper, CIA agent, tells you what you should think, and Rachel Maddow tells you what you need to think, when there's court cases in federal court, I mean, U.S. District Court, Southern Court of New York. I just named the court. The cases are out there. Go after the president. The current nominee for labor secretary by Trump said that Trump can get off the hook. His name was brought up in the case. Trump once said to New York Magazine in 2002 about Jeffrey Epstein, just so that there's no confusion of them having friendship or a connection, quote, and I'm quoting the President of the United States, he's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it, Jeffrey enjoys his social life, end quote. His social life. Flying around in private jets with 14-year-olds and raping them on an island is social life. Donald J. Trump, you have no integrity, my man. Zero. We're praying for you, man. The FBI showed disloyalty to Trump, coupled with Comey having access to evidence that could implicate Trump, is a lot more likely than Russia. I'm just reading some of the thoughts and notes that I wrote down. Apparently, if the president's firing a guy with a bunch of evidence against him, and there is clearly evidence in this whole Epstein deal because it was under investigation, because a case was brought forth, because there is evidence, and if the FBI was investigating this Epstein case, and Trump was technically a co-conspirator in the case, or arguably a co-conspirator, again, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know the definition of co-conspirator, but it's my layman's understanding is that he was. Comey had evidence on Trump. He had dirt on Trump. Again, could that be the reason why he fired Comey? I don't know. I'm not here stating like the mainstream media, like Chris Cuomo on ABC, like I know more than you and I'm better than you and I can tell you and look you in the eye and say, the reason, or like the New York Times, I quoted the New York Times a moment ago, the reason Donald Trump fired James Comey was because he was investigating into his ties with Russia. That is arrogance. That is the media telling you, you're dumb, I'm smart, I know more than you, you're just a little boy, I'm going to pat you on the head and tell you what you need to think. No, I'm up here just putting all of the food on the table and saying, you guys do the math, you guys pick what looks good. I'm just simply introducing some other things to take into consideration, because I'm not up here saying that the reason why Trump fired Comey was because Comey had dirt on him with regards to Jeffrey Epstein. Is it possible? Absolutely. Because Comey had evidence on Trump with his connection to Jeffrey Epstein. He also had evidence on Bill Clinton. And I think that when the elites are all in trouble for the same reason, they all circle the wagons and get their media hacks to defend them. Well, I'm up here on the social webs. I'm not beholden to the elite. I'm a regular guy just trying to pay my bills, And I'm out here talking to you, my brothers and sisters who are out there just struggling, trying to pay their bills and trying to figure out this crap, you know, what's actually going on. Because guess what? The media is lying to us. And if they lied us into war, could they be lying us about a Russian allegation? Remember Iraq, weapons of mass destruction, Saddam Hussein, 9/11, all that stuff? Come on, left. You guys are smarter than that. And again, I'm appealing to those people who are running around saying, Russian allegation, Russian allegation. I know it's hard to admit that you're wrong. I know it's hard, but it's so good for your soul. It's so good to just repent. It feels good. Try it for once. Because you know what, guys? You probably don't feel very good about yourself. You probably kind of feel miserable inside, don't you? To just hold on to this ideology based on lies. It is so liberating to live in the truth. Trust me, I do. I'm wrong a lot. And it feels good to admit when you're wrong. It does. In the beginning it doesn't, but eventually it does. It feels really good. So, as I was continuing, well, the left says, oh, the timing of it all. Well, do you think maybe for a second Trump is smart and timed the firing of Comey to make it look like it was about the Russian connection? Because if it's not true and Trump knows it's not true, how convenient would it be for Trump to have everybody focusing on a scandal that's not real, while on the other hand, he's got real scandals that he would really genuinely like to hide. But the left is so foolish because the elite has convinced them that it's Russia, 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 Russia. Oh, that's scary. When in fact, Lolita Express, perhaps, I don't know, perhaps a little bit of, what you call it, what was the other thing? Raping of a 13-year-old girl. Jane Doe, a anonymous plaintiff, has a case against Trump for rape. Maybe a little thing called war? Maybe there's a war starting, and we're all talking about a lost election back in November, and this crazy thing about Russia. While guess what? The Intercept is reporting Russia, Iran, oh, I'm sorry, wrong article. Donald Trump may escalate the Afghanistan war he spent years calling a terrible mistake. The Trump administration, this is May 9th, 2017, theintercept.com. The Trump administration is reportedly weighing a proposal to send thousands of more troops to Afghanistan in escalation of the longest war in U.S. history. This would be a significant about-face from Trump's public position in the years prior to his presidency. He said in 2015 that invading Afghanistan was a, quote, terrible mistake, and the current situation was, quote, a mess. And he added, quote, I would leave the troops there begrudgingly because that thing will collapse in about 2 seconds after they leave. Well, here we are. President Trump is sending thousands of troops to Afghanistan. Allow me to continue. He is now arming the Kurds. So there's a group in Iraq, the Kurdish people, that have been armed. NBC News, May 9th, 2017. Trump has approved a plan to arm the Syrian Kurdish militia, an important U.S. ally in Syria, in the fight against ISIS. The Pentagon said the move is significant because it supports the notion that the Syrian Democratic Force is the fighting force that will eventually go into Raqqa, a city in Syria's center that has been under ISIS control since 2014. So he's arming groups, he's sending more troops to Afghanistan, and also, most interestingly, in Syria, if you remember, a couple weeks back, Trump ordered 59 Tomahawk missiles illegally. It was unconstitutional, which, again, no one seems to care about. Starting a big war seems a lot crazier than some crazy conspiracy theory about Russia. Remember when the left used to make fun of the right for having conspiracy theories and no evidence? Anyways, they started this big war, 59 Tomahawk missiles dropped down on Syria, and as a result, it looks like that could have helped ISIS. And I was shocked when I followed the logic, but follow the logic here. Shortly after those missiles fell, Russia suspended the no-fly zone restrictions temporarily. So all of the air support that was taking out ISIS was removed, which allowed ISIS to regain, recoup, and recover by shipping oil, weaponry, and moving their people all across the Middle East. Just because, in case you're not following, there is a jihad occurring. There is a war where black ISIS flags are invading areas of Syria and Iraq and the Middle East. and women are being sold into sex slavery and Christians are being put on crosses. You don't hear about that in the American media, but it's happening, and it's happening at a faster pace because after Trump bombed Syria, Russia suspended no-fly zone restrictions, who's kind of the sheriff right now in the Middle East, and then reinstated the no-fly zone after ISIS was able to sort of recover and regroup without the United States involved, meaning the U.S. was not even a member of this coalition to enforce the no-fly zone over certain areas of Syria. But guess who is in charge? Turkey. The same country that got caught supporting ISIS. Turkey was quarterbacking ISIS during the Obama administration. I don't have time to go over this right now, but it's a fact. And Susan Rice, hashtag Spine Susan, knew all about this. I made a documentary about this. If you go to my YouTube and look for an ISIS documentary, I exposed this for you guys. So it's just crazy that the bombing of Syria has now resulted in potentially giving a hand to ISIS and creating more war or escalating the war. And we're not hearing about any of this because Trump fired Comey. Do you think Trump may be hiding an escalation in war and what's going on over there? If you remember, August 29, 2013, Donald Trump tweeted, "What will we get for bombing Syria besides more debt and a possible long-term conflict? Obama needs congressional approval." Fast forward to 2017, Trump bombed Syria and got us into more debt, started a long-term conflict without congressional approval. Dr. Donald Trump, you are a hypocrite. I'm sorry, Mr. President, you are a hypocrite. And lastly, what else could he potentially be hiding other than a sex scandal, other than World War III knocking on our door with zero dissent? No one's protesting the war right now. Nobody's protesting the war right now. Nobody's protesting the war right now. I cannot believe it. I cannot believe it. Think about that, guys. We're about to enter into World War III, and no one is having a conversation about the war. We're walking blindly into World War III. Let's raise and rise above this corporate attack on our minds. This is not reality that they are projecting upon us. This is militarized propaganda. I'll leave it at this. Obamacare betrayal right during the firing of Comey, while the left was saying, look at the timing. He was about to meet with Russian diplomats and there was an investigation going on. He's clearly hiding his ties with Russia. He just got done betraying his base by repealing, quote unquote, Obamacare and replacing it with Obamacare 2.0. If you don't know the difference, listen to episode 11, my last episode, where I, in depth for a half hour, go into how he betrayed his base and his voters by essentially keeping Obamacare. Did the conservatives have a chance? Did his base have a chance to debate about the betrayal? No. They got thrown into a debate, many of them defending the president, about there was no Russian connection. So here we are again, infighting, left versus right, tribalism, the left saying the right's wrong, the right saying the left's wrong, and everybody's fighting. Well, potentially Donald Trump could be sitting back laughing at all of this, because we're all arguing about something that he wants us to argue about, which is this Russian connection that doesn't exist, while he may be getting away with World War III, which should upset left and right, because I would hope to think that the left doesn't want to start big wars. I would hope that the left doesn't want terrorists running around. I would hope that the left doesn't want us in debt. I would hope that the left wouldn't want the president raping little girls. I would hope that the right meant what they said by truly wanting to repeal Obamacare. I would hope that the right doesn't want to start big wars and doesn't want to get into big debt. But no, it looks like Trump and the media has us fighting about this silly Comey firing, when I'm just going to conclude that it's probably just a big fat distraction. The war drums are continuing to drum. And while we talk about these boogeymen and all this craziness, we are going into war with zero dissent. I would just urge that we get past this left-right paradigm and unify. I think there's an opportunity to unify, because I think that the right and the left care about justice, care about fairness, care about a president that has integrity. I think that the left and right can agree on this. And the only way that the establishment and the pro-war, pro-corporate government can win is if they can get us fighting about these stupid things. So I'm just up here pleading to you guys, let's deal in the realm of facts. Let's turn off the corporate media. Let's pay attention to the independent media. Tune into places like this, Counterculture. I'm done. This was episode 12. I am your host, Aaron Lujan, aaronlujan.com. I'm on iTunes, Stitcher, all the major podcast players. As the world continues to devolve, it's important that you secure your survival and the survival of your families. I would encourage you to visit prepsave.com, the lowest prices on emergency preparedness essentials to surviving a collapse of the grid, which just happened. We had the largest hack in the history of the world last week, where the entire systems of major institutions and governments and corporations were brought down by hackers through malware. Can you imagine if that happens to the electrical grid? Can you imagine if that happens to our natural resources, when gas can get 18-wheelers can't transport gas to gas stations, or when you can't turn on lights, and what's going to happen to social society? Have you thought about defending your family? Prepsave.com. Thank you for joining me. I'm your host, Aaron Lujan. This was Counterculture, episode 12. Thank you.